So we're going to talk about classifying or the classification of organisms. We're going to discuss how they're put together into groups based on similarities, how they branched out based on differences, and things of that nature, okay? So the first thing I want you to know is that when you study classification, you're studying taxonomy. That's a vocab word, okay? Taxonomy is the branch inside biology that has to do with how we classify organisms. And there's 3 things that you're going to do to classify an organism. Anybody know what it is?
I see magnifying glass there, so I guess it means that you have to like find organisms.
Find, identify, good. And then what do you do to them? Once you identify, what do you think? You label them by giving them a name, whoops, and then you classify them, which is what we're doing. So you're going to say, hey, look, that looks like this based on these characteristics. Let's call it this. And that means it belongs to this group, okay? So back in the day, he wasn't even a scientist. We had this philosopher who was the first to classify organisms. Anybody know who that is? No. Not back in that day. Nobody knows who that is?
Aesop.
What?
Aesop.
You got an A. I could give you an A.
Aristotle.
There you go.
Oh, for real? I was joking.
Aristotle, for real. Aristotle said, you know what? Every creature in this planet belongs to 2 groups. And he said, I believe every organism belongs into 2 groups. What do you think they are? Look at the picture.
Plants and animals.
That's it. He said, you're either this or you're that. Doesn't matter what organism you are, you fall under this category. He based plants, or he categorized plants or branched them out based on what? What's this?
Stem.
Their stem. And animals, he based it off of what? Good. Off their habitat, where they live. Good job. So he said, everything based on that resembles an animal falls into this group, and I divide them further based on where they live. And if you're a plant, I'm going to divide you further based on your stem, or lack of, because some don't have. So Linnaeus is the father of classification. Who's the father of genetics?
Charles Darwin.
Okay, who discovered the cell? Hook. Remember those names, because of course you want to remember that Linnaeus we call him the father because he created this system to classify organisms, which made so much sense that we still use it. So they haven't deviated from it. There's been changes to the system, but we haven't deviated from them. So he's going to name the organism, and then he's going to group them into categories, which is classifying them at the end. You group them based on their classification system. And those are based on specific characteristics that are similar. And I'm sure you kind of opened your mind to that yesterday with the assignment. How do we name the organism? Anybody know what that name is called? All organisms have? It's based on that part of the name. It's called, good, the scientific name. And what language is it? Latin. Good. It's Latin. And we call it by nomenclature because what? It's 2 parts to the name. Good job. So we have our name. If you're an organism, if you're a human, your scientific name is Homo sapien. Okay? So this is our scientific name. All organisms have a scientific name. It comes from a Latin language, and it's a 2-part name. The first part of your name comes from your what? You said something. Well, that's the second part. Good. Your second part of your name comes from species. And how do we write it? Look up there.
Oh, first
It's a certain type of font.
Look at it. It's not a certain type of font. I used a certain type of font. What does one side and the other side have in common? All letters are what?
Lowercase.
Good. All letters are lowercase. Okay? The first part of the name, anybody know what it comes from? Not kingdom.
It's like class.
Not class.
The same.
Not phylum.
Homo means
I'll give you a letter.
order.
G.
Family
Genus.
group.
Genus.
Damn.
How do we write genus?
G-E-N.
No. For every organism. The first letter of the genus is capital. And then to the whole name, you have to do either one thing or the other. What am I doing to that whole name? What does that side look like? It's, well, yes. I bolded, let's say I bolded, italicized or underlined. Okay? So when you write a scientific name, the name is derived from the genus and the species of the organism. The genus first letter is capitalized. The whole word of species is lowercase, and you either have to underline or italicize the name. That is the proper way to write a scientific name. That's how you name an organism. This is how you categorize them, okay? It's based on similarities. Organisms who share the same species in categories are going to be really, really similar. They're going to share a lot of characteristics. Life, this is the order of classification. Of course, you have to be living to be classified. So when we cover viruses, which you're going to do projects on, viruses are non-living. So they're technically not part of any classification system. Then we have what's called domains, and they are basically just came into play. I've taught this for years, and they didn't even exist because somebody figured this is important to know. We're going to talk about that. And then we branch out into what? Anybody know the order? First, what? Kingdom. Then phylum. Class. Order. Family. Genus. It's right there on the slide. Species. But I want you to, don't write. I want you to, with tempo, say these words for me. Ready? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Say it again. Kingdom, phylum. Do that for any test you make. So, I want you to know that there's 7 kingdoms, and then there's the domain, okay? So if we're going to use the mnemonic, here it is. Dear King Peter came over for good soup. Okay? Dear King Peter came over for good soup. For me, it was King Philip came over for gumbo soup. Who has gumbo soup? So we're going to call it good soup.